working on admitting everyone that's joining us today.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to get started. We are recording today's session. So if anyone else joins, we're going to be sharing this recording with you, as well as copies of the presentation with the information that will be shared today, and that will be available also in Spanish and Mandarin, which is the first order of business for today. Since we have interpreters here, we're going to go ahead and have our interpreters share information about how to access the interpretation audio. And then we'll officially start all of the content for today. Victor, can I have you start?
Thank you, Nora. Good afternoon, everybody. Muy buenas tardes a todos ustedes. Gracias por estar aquí. Me llamo Víctor Hernández. Voy a ser el traductor al español. Les queremos dejar saber que esta reunión será traducida totalmente en directo en el español, y para poder acceder al canal de audio, usted tendrá que hacer clic en lo que es un icono de un globo, es decir, un mundo que aparece al fondo de su pantalla en la barra de tareas de esta plataforma de Zoom. Después de hacer clic en ese icono de un globo o mundo, usted entonces tendrá que seleccionar su idioma, que en este caso será el español. Muchas gracias. Wei.
嗨，大家好，今天非常荣幸呢，能够为大家提供那个普通话的这个同声翻译的服务。大家如果希望待会的那个会议里面呢，能够这个听到我的普通话的翻译的话，请你到那个 Zoom 的屏幕的底部了，找一个地球的图标，然后这个点击一下以后呢，这个请你选择那个语言翻译，当中应该你选那个中文 Chinese， 然后呢，你就可以接上那个中文的频道，就可以听得到我待会提供的翻译的服务。然后呢，如果你是用那个手机上网的话，或者用那个平板电脑的话呢，可能你看到的屏幕上面呢是3个逗点那个3个逗点点击以后呢，选择那个语言翻译呢，同样可以选那个中文呢，也可以听得到我的这个翻译的服务。好，大概是这样子。好，谢谢哈。待会启动那个频道以后呢，就请大家到那个底部去选择。谢谢 ，Thank you。
Thank you, and I want to thank the County of San Mateo for partnering with us to offer the interpretation. Access is important, and it's possible often when we can do things together. Which brings me, I'll introduce myself. My name is Nora Razon, and I'm the director for the Small Business Development Center that serves San Mateo County. We provide business supports in the form of trainings like today's, as well as technical assistance that is offered on a one-on-one basis by a team of business advisors. We're really wanting you to know that we're able to support anyone that is working or is interested or has questions on any of the loans that are available through the SBA. Today's focus is on the disaster loans, but we have advisors that are able to support small businesses on exploring options and processes. So that's our role today. We're doing this in a collaborative spirit, and also have the San Francisco SBDC present. And so I'm going to give a few minutes to Josiel to quickly introduce himself as well.
Thank you, Nora, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. As Nora said, my name is Josiel Cruzeta. I'm the director for the San Francisco Small Business Development Center. And just to echo Nora's words, we're here to help in terms of helping you with technical assistance, accessing any of these programs and products that you're going to hear today from Louise Porter, as well as, thank you to the state of California, Claire Whitmer, the county of San Francisco as well, for helping us put this together. And thank you, Nora, as always, for the collaborative efforts. Hope you all enjoy and get the information that you need today.
So we're going to have we have our work is made possible through funding from the SBA as well as from the state. And we're fortunate that we have Claire Whitmer here with us to share a little bit more about the position of the state in terms of supporting small businesses, as well as any, I think it's important that we know what's available and who is working on our behalf in that position. So we're going to go ahead and pass it on to Claire, and then we'll go ahead and have Louise Porter from the SBA really expand on the SBA resources available. It's an unfortunate situation. We never want to be able to host a webinar focused on disaster resources, because we don't want disasters to happen. But the silver lining is that we do have resources when things happen. We have partners that are ready to really step in and support. And so I'm really holding on to that part of today's conversation and learning. Claire, I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to you.
Thank you, Nora, and really want to thank our partners at the SBDC network and at the City and County of San Mateo for organizing this important webinar today and for including our office, the California Office of the Small Business Advocate. And my role here today is to provide a brief overview of Cal OSBA, specifically with a focus on the services that we provide to disaster impacted communities. So I'm going to share my screen, and just give me a moment to pull up my slides. That should go away. Slideshow from beginning. And if one of you could just give me a clue of whether or not you can see my slides. Okay, thank you. So again, my name is Claire Whitmer. I am the Northern California Regional Advisor. I will put my email in the chat. That means I represent the 32 counties of Northern California, which unfortunately over the past few years have been ravaged by chronic wildfires. So I am also the point person for our disaster services out of our office. And let me see, it is not advancing. There we go. So Cal OSBA mission and objectives, we are part of the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, but we are an independent office. And our mission includes 4 primary objectives. We provide access to information, content, and resources about how to start, manage, and grow a small business. We advocate on behalf of the state's 4.2 small business owners and entrepreneurs, specifically with an emphasis on expanding access to markets and access to capital. We advance resiliency through disaster preparedness and economic recovery. And we drive economic mobility and wealth building through entrepreneurship. And our priority in all of those 4 objectives is to make sure that we extend these services to underserved business groups, which means women, minorities, people of color, veteran-owned businesses, and businesses in low wealth, rural, and disaster impacted communities, which unfortunately this year includes San Mateo County, as they have been designated as a primary county by the presidential major disaster declaration. So amongst our strategic initiatives, each regional advisor serves as a point person for one of these. Today, obviously, I'm going to focus on disaster preparedness and resiliency. And again, I am the point person out of our office for these initiatives. So specifically, we do not do disaster response. That is the task of Cal OES and other emergency management services. We do serve, however, on the economic recovery support function in partnership with Cal OES so that we remain aware of and looped into disaster services as they become available. For example, we are serving on the agricultural task force that has been spun up by FEMA for this disaster, for responding to this disaster, which may also cover some small businesses and farms out of San Mateo County. So we serve as a coordinating agency function for information about disaster services and disaster resources that are unlocked when a disaster is declared by either the governor or the president or both, as in this case. We also have organized and oversee this Outsmart disaster awareness program, which is very simply a training program to help businesses get ready for business interruptions. So this is in advance of an unexpected event like what we have experienced this year, and helps them answer these questions so that they are as ready as they can be for when disaster or other business interruptions strike. So you can find out more about this program on our website, outsmartdisaster.calosba.ca.gov. One of our other functions is to help create awareness and redirect businesses to funding that is available for businesses through the state, most specifically through iBank. So in this case, as you see here is highlighted on the screen, the declared state of emergency across the state does make funds available from iBank for disaster impacted businesses, up to $1 million with an up to 95% guarantee by the state. So these loans are negotiated with and underwritten by specific local lenders. And our role is to provide information about the program and to connect people with local lenders so that they can negotiate on behalf of themselves for these loans. This is the Disaster Relief Loan Guarantee Program, is the major financing activity that the state of California does for this purpose. So we also, of course, fund and oversee the network of more than 102 small business centers across the state of California, which include all of our wonderful partners at SBDC and as well as nonprofits that provide technical assistance. So you're going to hear more from them later, but I encourage you to look at the map and find out about all the small business centers that are available in your community. A large part of what we do is to administer programs that build the small business ecosystem in California, including support for Accelerate California. California Regional Initiative for Social Enterprises is a new program we are launching this year, and additional funding this year for the Women's Business Center. So I'm not going to deep dive into any of this, but if you'd like more information, you can follow up with me via email. We also administer direct grant programs, and I'm not, again, going to deep dive into the details of either one of these new programs, but they will be stood up in the next quarter, and they include climate-specific direct relief programs like the newly approved drought relief grant program, $75 million for small agricultural businesses, most specifically in the Central Valley. So again, for purposes of time, I'm going to wrap it up, but I can make this presentation available with live links in a PDF version. So please email me directly, and I will turn it back over to my SBDC partners. Thank you so much for organizing today. So important that you provide this information. I will encourage listeners to go to calosba.ca.gov. We also have a very simple simple one-sheet program with referrals to important resources for disaster-impacted businesses. And while you're there, please subscribe to our newsletter. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Before I hand off the mic to Louise Porter from the SBA, we had one person join the webinar, Álvaro Ordóñez, and I just want to make sure he doesn't need interpretation. Álvaro, do you need interpretation? ¿Ocupas interpretación?
¿Cómo?
¿Ocupas interpretación?
Ya, sí.
Puedes ver en la barra de opciones,
Ok.
un globo. Ahí te da la opción de entrar al canal donde están traduciendo a español.
Ok. Gracias.
Okay, so Louise, I'm going to hand off the mic to you. And thank you so much for joining us and for working with us so quickly to be able to offer this information today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nora, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to present this to the community, because this is a limited time opportunity for recovery, and getting the information out quickly is very important. So there has been a presidentially declared disaster for the state of California, and it includes San Mateo. It's for the severe winter storms, flooding, landslides, and mudslides that occurred or started occurring December 27th and continuing until January 31st. And next slide, please. And because there is this declaration, it opens up different avenues of, as Ms. Whitmer was saying, the declaration opens up different avenues of recovery for people. And in this case, people don't understand all the time that during presidentially declared disasters, the U.S. Small Business Administration provides low interest rate loans to homeowners and renters, as well as businesses of all sizes and most private nonprofits. So the very first thing to do is to register, and we're going to talk about that in one more second. But I wanted to let people know that there are a couple limits on the loans. It is to repair and replace real estate, inventory. It's for property that is owned by the business. The maximum amount is $2 million for businesses, and that includes economic injury. Economic injury is working capital loans to help a business keep going through the recovery period. The limits for homeowners are $200,000, and for renters or for personal property, even if it's in the home, can be up to $40,000. Now, one thing that's important to keep in mind or to mention is that on an approved loan, the SBA has an additional program that will allow an increase of up to 20% to put a mitigation measure in place that will help the property not sustain damage in the future. Next slide, please. So as the very first thing, as I mentioned, the most important thing, or the first thing people should do, is to apply. So San Mateo County is considered a primary county, and then any county that touches a primary county is considered a contiguous county. So at this time, San Mateo is a primary county, and so eligible to register with FEMA. San Francisco County is considered a contiguous county and is therefore currently not eligible to register with FEMA. But if that changes, and it's possible that they will add other counties to this declaration, if that changes, then that will open up the eligibility for San Francisco County to register. Nonetheless, registering with FEMA is not a requirement for the U.S. Small Business Administration. It is just recommended because it helps, well, it gives you a FEMA number, and then that helps connect all the paperwork, and that can be very important. But again, it is not a requirement. So first thing people should do is register with FEMA. Based on your responses, you may be referred over to the SBA. And even if you are just in a contiguous county at this time, you still have the opportunity. You can go to disasterloanassistance.sba. Wait, and my picture is behind that, .dhs.gov. Wait, sorry. I am not being able to see this right. Nonetheless, first thing first is to register with FEMA and then apply with the Small Business Administration. Next slide, please. So the first thing that happens when you register, when you complete the application for the Small Business Administration, is you're assigned to a loss verification team. The loss verification team, it's their responsibility to determine how much you could be eligible for based on your damage. Now, the SBA knows that this is an estimate. As people go through the rebuilding process, it sometimes happens that it costs more to rebuild than was anticipated, or people have unexpected costs. So if that happens, if you have an approval, then there's an opportunity later to make a request for an increase. But the very first thing that happens is the SBA makes an estimate as to how much you could be eligible for. That's also important to mention because as you're going through the application process, people worry about how much should I apply for? And people ask them, well, how much are you going to apply for? Or how much should you apply for? And people tend to not know this. And this is a very stressful question for people. This is a question you do not have to worry about because at the time of application, you do not need to know how much you're going to need. The most important thing at time of application is to get that application in there so that they can start the process. And we do strive to make a determination within 3 weeks of receiving a completed application process. But it's also important to note that sometimes with increased, when there's a lot of disasters and there's a lot of applications in the system, then sometimes it can take a little longer. So that being the case, I encourage people to get the application in as soon as possible, because once you get it in, then you're in under the deadline. And I'll say the deadline at the end because I know it comes, I have a whole slide for it, but I just want to mention the deadline for physical damage is March 16th. And that is very important because it's a hard deadline. It is possible that it could get extended, but I do not ever encourage anybody to hope for that, because if you get the application in before the deadline, you have options. A loan can be declined and it can be withdrawn. Sometimes they withdraw an application just to give people time to get in additional documentation. So if an application is withdrawn, you automatically get 6 months to request a reconsideration. This is important because a lot of times business owners tell me that they want to wait until everything is perfect to get that application in, and everything is not going to be perfect. We encourage you to get that application in, and then we'll work with you to get any additional information that we need. That being the case, I also want to say, next slide. Oh. Uh-oh. I think it might be missing some things. Let's go back to the slide before, if you don't mind. That'll work. Okay. So after the application is submitted, and one other thing on the application being submitted, one of the filing requirements is it's a document from the IRS called a 4506C. It's just, it allows the SBA to pull a copy of your tax transcripts. This is a required form on every single application. And if you ask for a reconsideration or at a later time, or they might ask you for this form again. Sometimes people hesitate because they say, well, we've already given you that form, and why should I give that form to you again? But I just want to say, since I have an opportunity, if you're ever asked for that form from the agency, it's one of those requirements that checks the box to allow us to accept your application. So please submit all the additional documentation such as that, even if you think it doesn't matter, because if they're asking for it, they want it. Now, the other thing, after the loss verification team makes a determination as to how much you could be eligible for, then you are taken over to processing. Let's go with the next slide. Yeah, we'll go with that one. We'll go. So you go over to processing, and it's processing's responsibility to determine how much you could be eligible for based on your damages and considering any other recoveries that have come in. So the program is not allowed to lend you funds for if insurance is going to cover that damage. Now, sometimes insurance takes a long time to come in, and this program can help people get money before the before insurance closes, or sometimes people want to not be quick to sign off on their insurance. Maybe they want to disagree with it, or it's taking a long time, or maybe you didn't even have insurance. Whatever is the case, that's fine. It's just if there is going to be insurance, then the agency will put what they call an assignment, and the assignment of insurance later on, if it comes in at a later time, then it will go to repay any of the loan. So, because that's within the law, they can't lend you the funds if there's already money or there's going to be recovery coming in. So once you're approved, once there is an approval, you have up to 60 days to make the decision of whether or not you want to accept those funds. You do not need to accept the funds, but you can make that decision. And you should be assigned to a case manager to help you with the documents. We currently have a recovery center here in San Mateo, and I'll talk about that in a minute. There are people available locally. And then even after that, there will be people available at a business recovery center that has not yet been set up, but we usually keep people here to help with closings and to help people with the documentation. We can also help you with it over the phone. So you do have some time if you to make that decision. Now, anything over 25,000 does require collateralization. So usually the first disbursement is 25,000, and then after that, any additional documentation that needs to be signed and submitted and can be sent in. And you'll be assigned to a case manager within our processing and disbursement center that can help you answer any questions and can work with you to help get your funds. Next slide, please. Now, the goal is to make these affordable. They are set below market rate, and they're set quarterly. And we're going to look at what they are for this disaster in a second. Now, the goal is to make it affordable so they can take the payments out for up to 30 years. The loan officer, before an approval, is responsible for determining how much of a payment would be reasonable for your business. And then based on the amount of the payment and the amount of the how much is needed, that's how they determine the length of time. This is not a typical loan at all. So anything that you know about lending from the past will probably not work for this program, because they kind of back into the equation, and that's different because it's based on a borrower's ability to pay. So they also have a refinancing possibility, and refinancing is, people say, like, people have told me a lot of times that they really would like that because they could refinance at a lower rate. The thing is it has to be a high level of uncompensated damage. So the goal is to create repayment ability. So even though refinancing at a lower rate does sound great, it's not, because you have to have a very high level of uncompensated debt or uncompensated damage. All right, next slide, please. Here we are, interest rates. Now, the interest rates for these, as I said, they're set quarterly by Congress. And for this declaration, they are as low as 3.305 for businesses, 2.375 for nonprofits, and 2.1313 for homeowners and renters, with, see a typo, with terms up to 30 years. Now, the thing about that is that when you look at the, when you see the fact sheet, there are two sets of rates. They're as low as 3.305 for businesses. That is the no credit available elsewhere rate. There is also a credit available elsewhere rate, which is 4.625. The thing is, before you put the application in, you do not know what your option will be, because this is determined. See, I wish they didn't call it credit available elsewhere and no credit available elsewhere, because it has absolutely nothing to do with credit. It is a calculation that's done at the time of processing that takes into a situation the organization's complete financial picture and the damages. So it's impossible to make this determination until until you actually have the loss verification and the SBA has your application. So that's why it's important to put the application in so that you know what your options are. Now, what's nice about this is that at this point, there has been a determination by our administrator that the first payment will be due 12 months from the date of the initial disbursement. This is actually new. It used to be 4 months. So this is a thing that's this is very new as of this year. The interest rate during the initial deferment period is 0. That is also new. The interest rate used to start accruing immediately. And the maturity date is still going to be based on the date of the loan or the note. So at the time of the note, 30 years from then will be the maturity date. The thing about it is that there's no penalty for prepayment, early prepayment. So if there's any payments, it's not a problem to pay it early. You can pay it all off at one time if it works for your situation. That's not a problem for the agency at all. What they really want to do is to help people to recover. Next slide, please. There we go. And a couple of things I wanted to bring out that are benefits is there is no cost to apply. And there are people to help you with that. There's no closing costs, there's no prepayment penalty, and the funds are available even if insurance has not settled. Now, modifications, that's important because a modification is an increase. If you'd like to request an increase as you go through the rebuilding process, then that is a possibility. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, only uncompensated losses, and also that's not for like secondary properties, but these are business owners. But if you have homes as well that were damaged, we do encourage you to apply. Now, the difference with the homes is that if a homeowner or a renter is declined, then they're most likely eligible to be referred back to FEMA's Other Needs Assistance Program. That's not the case with businesses. There is no federal grant program for businesses. FEMA's a grantor, SBA is a lender. So with homeowners and renters, there is that possibility. I do have to say that I did want to make sure I let y'all know that it's not possible. There's no grant programs through the federal government for businesses at this time. And I have not seen any yet. And I started in '99. So nonetheless, now, not being consistent with your other federal obligations can be a concern for this program. So if you are delinquent on your taxes or student loans or child support, I would recommend at least filing your taxes before you put the application in, but just to let you know on that. Next slide, please. Yes, filing deadlines for physical damage are 60 days from the declaration date. And in this case, it is March 16th. As I mentioned before, this is important. You can make a request for a late application, but you need to put in writing what was beyond your control that didn't allow you to apply during the time frame. So the agency will make a determination as to whether or not they will accept your application after March 16th. So before March 16th, they will accept your application. So we encourage you to get it in before then. Now, the filing deadline for economic injury is always 9 months from the date of declaration. So for this declaration, it's October 16th, 2023. Now, they push that out that way because sometimes economic injury takes a while to be realized. And people might not realize that they are having a struggle because of the disaster. So they give them 9 months. Now, even if the declaration is extended, the physical damage deadline, it is possible that the state will make a request and that will be approved for they might push the deadline out. This economic injury deadline will not move. It will still be October 16th. So just to keep that in mind. Next slide, please. Now you can apply online. disasterloan.sba.gov/ELA. If you forget what that is, you can go to sba.gov and follow the links, or you can put an SBA disaster loan into Google and it will actually take you here. Because there have been so many disasters recently, we are very searchable right now on Google. And I'm sorry to say that because I would rather not be searchable on Google and not have so many disasters, but unfortunately. Next slide, please. Now, as I mentioned before, and I wanted to bring it up again, that you can get an increase of up to 20% to help with future damage or increase the safety of your property and to be more resilient, because that's so crucial, as Ms. Whitmer was saying, to actually think about what your preparedness plans are ahead of time is a great time. I mean, it's hard to say it's great, but right now, because people are thinking about the disaster and thinking about what the future of their business might be during disasters, this is a great time to look at your resilience and your own planning, because you know what didn't go well during this disaster, and that can help you to create a better plan and build back more resilient in the future. Next slide, please. Now that's weird. So this one had some words in it before, but that's okay. It's just the problem is that we're not able to give you real examples of what you can do. We can't tell you, oh, you should do this and it'll be okay. But for flood mitigation, it could be to seal your roof, or for wildfires. There's just different things you can do. It is up to you to make the request with the project that you want to do. So actually, it's probably just as well that it's blank, because that is the fact. The fact is, it's a blank slate for you to be able to draw upon and make a request for your situation. That's the thing. Disasters are so personal. So what will work for you, where you live and where work and where your business is, might not work for somebody else. They might have different, potential disasters. So you got to think about where you are and what your needs are. Next slide, please. And again, you can go online to disasterloanassistance.sba.gov. But if you do need some help, you can give our customer service center a call. It's 1-800-659-2955. I do encourage that. We do have a whole team of Spanish speakers that work at this phone number. So we encourage you to call. And if you speak a language that we do not have, you can request interpretation services and they can get that on the phone for you. So please do not hesitate to call this number, if 1-800-659-2955, if you have a question, even if it is in another language. Next slide, please. And I guess we're here for questions. You know, one thing that I wanted to say before we open it up for questions is, and unfortunately, I do not have a slide for this, but the Disaster Recovery Center opened up this morning at 9 a.m. at the San Mateo County Event Center, and that is 2495 South Delaware Street in San Mateo, and it's 94403. But 2495 South Delaware, it's at the Event Center. That's a huge place. So there's tons of parking, and it just opened today, and it is going to be on the news. So hopefully, if you have a chance to go there, they are open from 9 a.m. to 7 every day. And I've heard they are closing on the 22nd. So if you want to go sooner than later, that would be a great idea. All right. So now I guess we'll answer some questions, huh? How should we do it, Nora? Should I just read through them or go to the beginning, or what do you think?
I can read them to you just so that we're able to say them out loud and the interpreters are able to catch them. And also to give the interpreters a moment to share that people can post questions on the chat. And if that's not an option for them, I think people can raise their hands and I can unmute them. Okay. The first question is, I have multiple businesses being impacted by the disaster. Should I submit an application for each business entity?
Yes. There's actually a space to be able to build that out. So it depends exactly how it's structured for you, but yes, for every business that's impacted, if they have different tax structure and they're a complete different organization, then yes, they would need separate applications. But I do recommend putting them all in at one time because they are so interlinked. Now, if it's just one tax return and multiple businesses, that's somehow a little bit easier because then you just need to write down the different addresses. But yes, there is definitely a way to do that in the system. I hope that answered it.
Thank you. The next question is, are there minimum FICO requirements? Credit scores?
They do pull a credit report. That is the first thing they do. And there is, if it's below a certain number, they will decline. But unfortunately, I don't know what that number is. So having acceptable credit is important, and lower credit will decline it. But the thing is that if you are declined for credit, you have an opportunity to request a reconsideration. And so I would still encourage you, even if you're declined for credit, you can take a look at what that is and then maybe put in another reconsideration request after that. Okay, next.
Great. We have a participant who has a business in Santa Clara County, Sacramento County, and San Joaquin County. Are there contacts in those counties, someone like yourself? Or what counties are you covering?
Well, for public affairs, there's a different public affairs specialist in each county, but in terms of putting in an application, if you're in, I'm sorry, which counties were they again that you read?
Santa Clara, Sacramento, and San Joaquin.
Oh yeah, Santa Clara. Yeah, I think those are all contiguous counties at this point. So it's all connected. So one application, and they should have, it doesn't need to be separated by county for the application. I think that's the question. Can you read it again?
The final question was, what's the contact info for those counties? Everything is submitted through the same website, regardless of county. If you want to have a contact from the SBA, I think it still applies that people can reach out to you and then we can connect them.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Yeah, absolutely. And I know we connect with the SBDCs in all of those counties. So if there is, if someone needs some counseling, business counseling in one of those counties, then yes, I'm sure, Nora, you could help connect them with somebody that's there. And our 800 number works for any of the counties. So 1-800-659-2955. And we have recovery centers that are set up in different counties. So if people have a recovery center near them, they can go and visit. Now, I know that sounds obscure. So I will say the 800 number, 1-800-659-2955, they can tell you if there's a recovery center near you. Actually, they're really good at that. So feel free to give them a call and ask them that. And also FEMA does have that information online as well, where recovery centers are.
Right, I heard 1-800-659-2599.
Nope, 1-800-659-2955.
All right, I'm adding it to the chat, everyone. There.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next question, can a San Francisco business go to the San Mateo Disaster Assistance Center for services?
Yes, absolutely. The only difference would be you're more than welcome to speak with our SBA representatives there. Not a problem at all. The only difference is that because it is a contiguous county, you're not eligible for FEMA, but more than welcome to speak with SBA there for sure.
And can the complete application be completed and completed online?
It sure can. Now, there is some additional documentation like that 4506C that I mentioned, but there are ways that you can upload that information into the system. So yes, the application can completely be done online. It is not necessary to meet with anyone in person to do it.
And there's a question about, can you give examples of proof of losses, physical property losses, inventory losses, losses of business revenue? I think this is speaking to, like, sometimes we normalize the impacts of a disaster, and they actually are losses, and they could, qualify you for these loans. So if you can provide some examples.
Yes. So Well, physical damage, a lot of time with flooding can be basement flooding or structural damage. People's vehicles can get damaged. I mean, people can lose their entire inventory in their store. The thing is, and I think what will answer your question is, they're not expecting you to hold on to all of this damaged property, anything that is damaged and you need to get rid of for health reasons makes perfect sense. The important thing is to keep a listing of it and what your losses are, take some pictures, and yeah, they can see, even if everything's been cleared out, the verification team, they can tell that it's been damaged. So I would not encourage someone to hold on to damaged property just so you can prove that it was damaged. Take pictures, and whatever is damaged for you, that's your damage. That's legitimate because it was yours and it's damaged.
Thank you. There's a question about, would you help me for the application if my business is not in San Mateo? Marion, there's SBDCs everywhere, or an SBDC that can serve anyone in California. So we can follow up with you and connect you to someone at the SBDC that serves, that can serve your business. And they're also connected to the SBA in the way that we are. How can we apply for FEMA grants? It's the next question.
Well, the very first thing to do is to register with FEMA, to register with them. And if they are able to assist you, they will. So FEMA has programs that are dependent on an SBA referral, and they have programs that are not. So for homeowners and renters, when they register with FEMA and are referred over to SBA, if they're declined for a loan, then SBA refers them back to FEMA's Other Needs Assistance Program. But that's not available for businesses. So FEMA will not have any grants for businesses.
Can you make an appointment to meet with someone at the San Mateo Disaster Center?
You don't need to. It's walk-in, so no, it's not available to make an appointment, but we have several reps there, and typically there's somebody available. They have not been particularly busy, so I would encourage you to go meet with them. If there was a situation where they had a line or something like that, which I would be surprised, because there's a couple of them that are over there, but they would be more likely to tell you like what time to come back, and if they could make an appointment with you, that would be their thing. There's no process for making an appointment. It's walk-in.
Josiel, I'm going to have you ask the question live, but I'm going to ask the last question that came in. Are SBA loans available to non-US citizens?
Yes, that is a possibility. And that is a difficult question, but I do know that there's a possibility. It depends on the status of why they're in the United States and how that works. So, or what their status is for being here. But I would say put the application in, and then the determination will be made. But yes, I have heard of that happening, especially business owners that are not from here.
Josiel, go ahead and ask your question live.
Yeah, and just this is a question really for you, Louise, and just making sure that we understand what's available for San Francisco-based businesses. So right now, since we are a contiguous county, we only have access to the economic injury disaster loan, correct? Not
That's
FEMA
correct.
physical damage loans.
That's correct.
Okay. And
yeah, that's correct.
okay, so and if that were to change and we were to be added to the principal county, obviously we'd be able to access the other two.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and you would be notified as well.
Cool. Thank you. So just for any participant that's a San Francisco-based business, right now you can only technically apply for the economic injury disaster loan, and you do have to show proof of loss in revenue as a result of the disasters. And we can help with that as well.
And if there is an update to the declaration, the deadlines would be extended, right? It would still be
Not
March
automatic.
16th.
Unless the state unless the state made the request for it to be extended. Other counties getting added later, especially 30 days later, it is a very good reason to make that request. And I have seen that happen a lot. And it's very possible that they will extend it in those circumstances, but it's not an automatic thing. So
It's good to know. So it's good to be prepared.
it's best to get it in as if you are interested in pursuing this as an option for you, to get the application in before March 16th, even if you know you have more information to supply.
And Claire, I'm going to ask you to pose your question live after I present this last question. We just moved here, but my small business is registered in another state. Can we apply?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you've had physical damage to your business property, even if it's in another, if you were someplace else before, but you live here now and you got damaged, or you're working and you're here. So here's the thing. Even if you were here on vacation and you had physical damage to your property, but maybe your entire suitcase was in your car and it was flooded or something like that, that happens. Even people that aren't residents of here could be eligible if they can prove that they were here, like a hotel receipt that says like we were here during this time or something like that. So yes, absolutely, a business owner that has just moved and had physical damage, yes, absolutely, absolutely still eligible.
Thank you. Claire, go ahead.
Thank you, Nora. So the disaster declarations process is not static. Obviously, those of us who have been following this knows that counties have been added over time, including San Mateo as a primary county most recently. So is the SBA expecting additional counties at this point? I know that it is FEMA that makes those determinations, but what is the information available to you?
You know, we don't really necessarily have an expectation of other counties being added. We know that they have been requested. My understanding is almost every county has been requested, but they've been slowly coming in. Like you say, they're not, it hasn't been all the counties at one time. So unfortunately, I don't have any particular news on any additional counties that might possibly be right at that point, but I know that they have requested almost all of them. My understanding is every county except 9 in California were requested.
Thank you for that. And so I put a document into the chat, but please do check back to the Calo SBA homepage for listeners, because we are trying to track this and keep up with that list of counties as it becomes available. So just a simple resource available to attendees of this webinar.
Yes, and Claire, now that we've made acquaintances, I will also be able to update you with that information as it becomes available.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
We're gonna close off the webinar, and we'll download the documents that were shared in the chat and also include it in a follow-up email that will have our contact information, how to connect to a small business development center that can serve you, as well as a copy of the information without the blank pages. I figured out what happened there, so you'll be able to see the examples that Louise wasn't able to reference in those decks. So thank you for joining us. Again, it's not the kind of webinar we look forward to providing, but it's necessary, and we're here to be a resource. If you have follow-up questions or would like to work with someone one-on-one on an application, or even just like your recovery plan, please reach out to our centers. Again, my name is Nora Razon, and Josiel is here from San Francisco, but we're connected to the other centers across the region. So have a good rest of your day. Thank you all.